So we will be, just if you have any questions, I'd ask you to put them in the chat as we go along, because when we get to these question times, we'll address them as well as asking for you to speak up then. Then we'll go into some of the tips and tricks on applying for grants and what we at FRRR see as really strong applications and the things that you can do to make sure it's a really compelling and clear case for support when you're asking for funds. We'll also go for more questions and then give you some resources. This application or this slide deck will be sent to you within 48 hours. So don't feel like you've got to take furious notes on everything. And we'll also put a recording of the webinar on the program webpage. If you don't know about FRRR, Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal was started in 2000 by philanthropy and government with the express purpose of supporting the economic and social future of Australia's rural, regional and remote communities, recognising that there is challenges with access and infrastructure and services that are extended to those people in the most remote parts of our country and people outside of metro areas. We partner with organisations like Telstra, who I'm sure you are all aware of. And so this grant program and Telstra's involvement in this grant program has a really nice synergy. Telstra is the leading telecommunications and technology country in Australia. And they've proudly been at the forefront of technology for 100 years. With digital technologies and say grow, new networks and tech, they've made a really big commitment to ensuring that Australia-wide we have access and we're digitally capable to enhance and ensure that we're building a connected future so everyone can thrive. We're really excited about this partnership. It'll be running annually until 2025. Sorry, I have a blocker on. Okay. The Telstra Community Grants Program has $200,000 of grant value for it, with grants available up to $10,000. They are to support remote, rural and regional communities, and we're looking for projects specifically that foster resilience. That's a big word that we use these days for a lot of different things, but when we think about small communities, we're looking definitely in regards to preparation for disaster, but also understanding the other economic and social challenges that are being faced in communities, and knowing that strong social connections are a really important part for those thriving communities. Sustainable communities both relates to environmental sustainability, but also understanding the ways we can do things better, how we can be inclusive and plan for health and well-being for all. And livable communities bring all that together with a really specific focus on that digital capability that ensures people have access and skills to live and work as increasingly digital societies requires us to engage and have access and be enabled to do things. The grant closes on the 30th of March. Funding will be announced in late June. And the projects are to be completed between July 2023 and June 2024. When we talk about who should apply, it's all not-for-profit organisations. FRRR is able to give to organisations that aren't DGR1, which includes incorporated organisations or organisations with an ABN that are not-for-profit. We're expecting applications from organisations that are already playing roles in their community regarding sharing information, technology, education and supportive facilities that actually contribute to those connected communities. Overall, There are broad goals for this. Obviously, better community disaster preparedness as we have changes in environment and other circumstances. Better environmental practices, we see ways to go forward and change the way we do things to support a healthier environment. Digital literacy and social connection. It's important we will support both new and existing projects. So if you've got projects that can be upgraded or enhanced that align with the goals of this program, then we're really interested in how that might help you to scale your impact. We're interested in building capability by providing access to equipment and also building capacity in community organisations by providing access to equipment, information and education. We know that if you yourself as an organisation don't have the equipment to do your job or to actually support the work that you do effectively, then you're not as effective. So that capacity building is also something we'll be looking for. As I said, with or without DGR1 endorsement, you are eligible. You must be a not-for-profit and have either an incorporation certificate and or an ABN. Please call FRRR if you are a cooperative or other type of organisation, and we can discuss with you what might your not-for-profit status look like. The projects must be for charitable purposes and have really clear public benefit. And you can only submit one application per round. Ineligibility, so individuals, sole traders, private or commercial businesses. We appreciate that there may be some organisations that can deliver commercial projects, or sorry, not commercial, but charitable projects through the work they do, but they must be partnered with a not-for-profit that ensures that it is a charitable project and that there will be broad community benefit as a result of that. I think the guidelines are the best thing for you to go to have a look at. It's really important that you're aware that if you applied for an FRRR grant in the past and been successful, you need to have acquitted that grant within 12 months or within the time that you've been given. Or if you have outstanding final reports, you're not eligible to apply for further funding. As I said, the grants are for projects that are occurring from July 2023 onwards. Geographic eligibility is really important. Obviously, remote, rural and regional Australia have greater challenges, and that's why this grant exists. We're also aware that there are not-for-profit organisations operating in peri-urban communities on the fringes of locations that are actually zoned as metropolitan. So if you've got a question and you're working in those kind of communities where you have challenges in access, we ask that you contact FRRR and have a chat about your circumstances, and we'll be able to confirm your eligibility. It's a broad program, and we are looking forward to a lot of charitable projects that cover a lot of activities. So local events and activities that engage and educate community members on things from environmental sustainability to the adoption of better environmental practices. We're conscious that we're, speaking with agricultural communities that are adapting and looking at different weather events and how they will in the future respond and work as a community there. So information and education for those purposes. It's really important to consider that, Telstra is the partner and funder of this program. So there's definitely a technology emphasis that we're looking at. So how is embracing new technology or some digital solutions actually going to contribute to your project is really important, and I think will stand out in this grant round. And if you're looking at things like recycling, considering things like e-waste. Cyber safety is another area that we're conscious is something that organisations need to be aware of, and that there's also particularly vulnerable cohorts in communities that could benefit from awareness workshops and support in that way. Anything that can train or educate and build the digital literacy of communities will be seen as highly beneficial. Also things that increase the digital equity, such as increasing access to equipment for students in need. And then looking at that emergency and disaster preparedness. During recent disasters, we know that people are vulnerable to power going out. And more we see applications for things such as batteries or alternative mobile boosters to ensure that that vulnerability doesn't exist. And also understanding that those meeting places or facilities are fit for purpose. So we're interested in any essential equipment or improvements to connectivity for those kind of facilities. What cannot be funded, once again, I'd refer to the guidelines specifically, but what I have underlined here is projects that support core business and areas of responsibility of federal, state and local governments. There are some things that these government bodies should be providing to communities. So if that's already coming or we recognise that, we will be looking at that and asking questions about it. Prizes, gifts, trophies or awards, these provide individual benefit and therefore they're not charitable. So if you are looking at running events and looking at doing awards or things as incentives, we suggest you look for alternative sponsorship in addition to the funding that you might receive here to cover those kind of costs. I'd like to just draw attention to the last one on that list, which is the encouragement or advancement of sport. We recognise that sporting organisations in small communities are actually critical to those communities' connection and operation, and welcome initiatives that they're doing that enhance their community more broadly. But we cannot support projects that specifically are advancing the sport or support those people who are only involved in that sporting club and participate in the actual games. So if you are coming from an organisation like that, please think more broadly about who is going to benefit from an activity that you might do, and how that has a benefit there. If you have any questions, again, please contact FRRR. I'm just going to run through a couple of project examples because it's always good to see, really simple things that people have done. In Freycinet in Tasmania, the Volunteer Marine Rescue requested a mobile booster, a project of only just over $2,000, which had huge impact. They had a very clear issue there in regards to their location and the challenges that presented in them being able to actually do both their everyday work, the support of their volunteers and their rescue work. The need was access to high quality mobile phone coverage, which they'd identified really clearly. And then as a result, we suddenly have an organisation that is much better prepared to support its community, that benefits all its volunteers and the family members that are involved there, ensures safety, and also supports really vital operational things of those organisations, such as online access to training. The second project example is the Clarence Valley Landcare in New South Wales in Grafton. This organisation, its mission is to promote sustainable land and agriculture and biodiversity management, but their facilities weren't fit for purpose. Their interior office desperately needed an upgrade and their technology was restricting all their operations. So the whole purpose was, let's fix that upgrade, do the office fit out, and also really specifically that digital equipment. So a new iPad, smart TV, and a TV stand on wheels with webcam and microphone changed the way that community and that organisation could actually connect with each other. and really realise their vision for the future. So it's a beautiful, beautiful quote we have there from Debbie Repslag. I'm just going to point you really quickly while you're thinking about, you know, project examples to our grant seeker resources. We have a lot of case studies on the FRRR website. So if you're thinking about things, it's always good to go in there and see if you can find any other case studies that might support your project development, and look at the tools that we have there that can also really strengthen your project planning. Once again, I'll go back to read the guidelines and check your eligibility. If you're unsure, please contact FRRR with your questions. We'll do a quick poll here, and I'll get Mel to activate that. But while you're filling that out, we'll also go to questions now. And so, Mel, is there any questions in the chat?
There are. So we've run the first 2 polls. So we've done those. In the chat, there were a couple of questions, one about what is a DGR and where do you find out about RA1. So I've popped some links in the chat to the websites that we refer to for that information. A couple of other questions that we've had: would provision of household emergency equipment such as a crack radio be viewed as a gift?
Yes, in most circumstances, they are seen as providing individual benefit.
And also, would digital menus at a not-for-profit community cinema who employ local students completing school-based apprenticeships with us to help with their education and learning skills? The digital menu or boards would enhance their studies. Do you think this grant would cover the cost of this?
So these are awards. If you're talking about awards to individuals, then that's probably not going to meet the eligibility criteria. I'm just not sure about the digital menu, exactly what that looks like. So potentially give us a call following this webinar, and we can discuss that more specifically with you.
And we've been asked for an example of a non-project related staff training.
As in a cyber training, or non-project related.
Grace, are you happy to clarify that with us, please? I might go to the next question as well. We get that further information from Grace. So we've got another question. When you say must benefit wider community, how much of the wider community?
Yeah, I know you're not going to include everyone necessarily. I suppose if we consider even in a longer term what the benefits are of what you're doing. So first of all, you're a not-for-profit organisation, so your purpose or your mission, similar to the Clarence Landcare Group, is to add value and provide benefit to not just those around you, but a broader community. So I think it's looking at how you fulfill your mission or purpose, and how you see that actually driving those benefits that may be environmental and maybe involving volunteers and that, and then really there's that richer outcome that supports the whole community through you actually being a thriving organisation in there. So it can just be the beneficiaries, the volunteers, and the enhanced environment, and then knowing that people will be participating and those kind of things. So you don't have to make sure everyone in the community is included, but I think it's really just recognising your role in your community.
Right, we just had a response from Grace, and she's referring to cybersecurity training for staff.
Yep.
If that would be eligible.
Yes, definitely, Grace. You're very eligible to identify either a provider or a package or anything like that that would support your staff being trained, and simply it would be involve getting a quote for that to be facilitated, or for you to buy that package to build that capacity in your business. So that's definitely something that's a benefit. And I suppose going back to the previous question, what we see is that Grace's organisation, by having their staff cyber secure, aware and trained, means that they are providing better and safer services. They're building the capacity of that organisation because they're reducing the risks and potential costs that might come of that happening. So I think it's actually a really great question for us to kind of look at how we see that broader community benefit coming on when you actually build the capacity of your organisation through things like cyber security training.
A couple of questions from emergency services.
Yep.
So as an organisation, would we be able to apply for multiple rural fire brigades in one application?
Yes, if you were to go under the RFS, or sorry, I'm just saying RFS as an example, because typically they are the entity body that a lot of emergency services might operate under, or particularly the Rural Fire Service. You can't apply for more than the funds, so you would still be limited to that a grant up to $10,000. But if you had some kind of solution or support requirement that would support multiple brigades, we'd be very open to that being presented to us.
And emergency services volunteer rostering app cost, would that be something that would be eligible?
Yes, definitely. You know, obviously there's great benefits in being a more efficient organisation, and also providing that information to your members in an effective and way that can be timely and managed effectively. So that's definitely a great example.
Provision of communication equipment that supports an individual first, community second, but is in a pool. So it is used and then passed on to enable many more people.
Okay. What was it? Provision of a
provision of a communication equipment that supports an individual first and then community second, but it's in a pool. So it's used and then passed on to others. Yeah,
potentially. I can see the benefit of that if as long as it's not going to that individual for their ownership and for their continued benefit. If it was something that was, I suppose, a resource that was then going to become an asset for the community that could be accessed more broadly, that definitely can fit within the guidelines.
Right, we've just got 3 more questions. Mental health training and resilience for sport club members.
I would say no, because as I said, you have to look more broadly beyond that sport club members. There are some examples of grants for mental health first aid, and I think for a group that was the volunteer life-saving group last year, we did that. So you can look at that if you can then show us how those sports group members are working more broadly in your community. So potentially, but you have to be really clear on them what the next step of that engagement is after they are trained.
The next one, I'm just going to paraphrase a little bit because it is a bit of a long question. Would providing Wi-Fi and public access computers at the community centre open for public use, allowing to connect for the community, online training and education qualify?
Yes, that's very strongly aligned to the purposes of this grant.
Great. And can we apply for a program or activity to support a specific community cohort? For example, targeting resilience building for a specific vulnerable cohort within the larger community?
With regards to that, I would say if you are a DGR1, so a deductible gift recipient, who is actually a registered charity, that actually gives you a certain qualification in regards to the charitability of the project and the people that you work with. So in those instances, that direct support of that cohort qualifies as eligible.
Excellent. That's all the questions we've got.
Lovely. Okay, well, I will keep going and we'll move on to some tips for successfully seeking grants. The idea here is to really help you write strong grant applications, not just for this grant, but for any grant you're going to. We hope it's pretty simple, but I think sometimes it's really good to have these reinforced when you're starting to prepare an application. Starting from the top kind of down, these are my rules for strong grant application writing. You know, just to not get too complicated in it. Use clear, simple language. Really assume that the reader knows nothing about your organisation. So, you know, sometimes people will refer to a particular person and you're like, I've got no idea what they do in the community. Be really specific when answering questions. Avoid technical language. Use evidence to support claims. And make it clear how you're going to use the requested funds. Spell out acronyms and use facts, not opinions. So, as we said, this deck will be provided to you, and this is a great, I think, checklist to always kind of run over when you've written your application or when you're actually developing it. Going more into the specifics there, you know, as we've just heard, people have got a lot of different ideas. And so it is really, what is that idea and what are you doing? Are you solving an issue or building on a great opportunity for your community? Answering those questions like, why is it important for your community? And really important, you know, being able to tell us why or what will happen if you don't do this project. You know, that kind of makes it really compelling. As I said, consider the wide community, and also, are people excited, enthusiastic, supportive about your project? Is there other groups that you can engage with that will always support or strengthen a project idea when we look at it? And we do. We love evidence, we love stats, we love local economic or social impact. We love vox pops. You know, if you're doing community consultation just as a part of this, it's great for us to actually understand that support. So when you're answering the why, try not to be too general, you know, or anecdotal, and be really specific with any information that you've got. With who, as I said, you know, we'll come back to this, you know, the community and the wider community. Firstly, really let us know who will be involved in running, participating and benefiting from this project. We anticipate that there'll be a lot of applications from groups that are volunteer run, as well as, you know, staffed organised, you know, salary and staffed organisations. So it's great for us to know the background of your volunteers or the expertise that they bring to the project, even if it's just past expertise in doing this work. And also who will be participating and or benefit. So those specific beneficiaries may be the volunteers, you know, the broader volunteers, or you might have a, you know, particular age group or you know, even gender lens that you're applying to it, but also noting that that will have a ripple effect. Who in your community supports your project? So we referred to that earlier. Letters of support from an organisation or an individual that you've benefited or that have benefited from your work in the past are really highly regarded. So please consider if you can get anyone to, you know, provide you a testament for the work that you do. We like to know any information that's relevant to your project, and skills and experience of key people. The project details, keep this as simple as possible, but also ensure that you can include everything. So understand what the key project stages are, the tasks, the resources, and who's actually responsible for that delivery. The critical project dates, the project site, if it is actually an event or even the office that you're using. It's really important for us to understand building ownerships or leases. So if you're actually getting something installed that will benefit your operations, do you have a long-term lease, or are you only in there for the next 6 months? That will, and you're going to put a permanent you know, fixture in there that will actually benefit the landlord as opposed to providing you with an ongoing benefit. So it's really great if you can just kind of note in there what your ownership or lease status is with that building. Asking yourself what success looks like can be a really great way for you to visualize your project and to tell the story of the project, and make you kind of aware of the things that telling the assessor in the application will matter, because what success look like should excite you, and it will definitely excite us. So just once again, these are really great examples of how you keep your language simple and clear to assessors. So, when will the project be undertaken, those dates, the timing, to enable, all those planning things that you've thought about, the risks that you're mitigating, everything that you can do to really let us understand what's going on. You don't have to write the whole project plan, but really put those points in that are the questions that you can see us asking. With budget, the FRRR application has a template for you to fill in. It's important to understand this project doesn't have to be a standalone project. It may be a bigger project that has a larger value than $10,000, which is being supported by several other funders or even contributions from your own organisation. Or there may be fundraising elements in your running of an event that will actually contribute to covering, activity costs as well. So, as with everything, provide as much information as you can. Consider all the costs for the whole project, so that we're not asking questions about, well, how is that getting there, or what's the delivery cost, and get quotes for larger items, more than $500 or $1,000. I appreciate that, within a window of, you've got 3 weeks left to complete this grant application. You may not always get your quotes through. If you are having challenges with getting final estimates for work, we advise that you just give us, even attach a small explanation on what your estimates are based on. It could be something historical, some other work that you've spoken to someone else, so that we can understand the basis of those estimates. With regards to income, obviously co-contribution, as I referred to, by other donors or partners or supporters, and also recognising the in-kind contribution that might come from volunteers or local businesses. FRRR does use a formula so that the hours you put down for those volunteer hours add up to show us really what a great value add that is to the project. So, writing a strong grant application, align your project to the grant purpose. We do see this as being a popular grant program that will receive quite a lot of applications, and that the digital capability element will be highly regarded there, or just that idea of resilience for a broader community and that thriving community. So really think about how your project aligns to what this grant is asking for. If you've got a great project, please go and have a look at the FRRR website. We have quarterly grants for strengthening rural communities that are up to $10,000. And we also have several other grant programs that come up over the year that have specific, kind of objectives that really might, meet your needs and support you. Plan your application. If you're at this webinar today, that's great. That's the start. Then really make sure you've got a plan in regards to how you're going to deliver that application and submit it on the 30th of March, making sure everything adds up. We really need all the information that you can provide to us by that date. We appreciate there's technical issues. We appreciate that getting quotes or even letters of support can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge. Please let us know what efforts you've gone to. Write a note in it to say, we've done this or we've spoken to these people, so we know what's gone on. If you've got real challenges, particularly with technology, or you've got concerns, contact us within 3 to 4 days before the grant closes, so that we can consider and give you an answer, or think how we can help and support you to actually make a submission. And tell us a compelling story about why it's important to your community. These stories come to us, but also go out to our donors more broadly than Telstra, in understanding really what's going on in rural, regional and remote Australia. And, you know, they're important. And the more you tell us, the more we can tell people and gain support. We do assess what is written and provided with the application. So if it's not there, we can't assess it. Oops. Just on the assessment, when these come in on the 30th of March, I'll be heading up the internal FRRR assessment of applications and validation of the program. And then we'll be working with a committee, including Telstra representatives, to really look at the projects closely, look at their alignment, look at the distribution of projects across Australia, because we want to ensure that we're reaching out and supporting equity across Australia in all 3 of the remote, of the regional kind of sites. And ultimately, the decision is for the FRRR CEO, who is delegated authority of the FRRR board. This ensures that we really have a lens that supports charitable projects and aligns with our objective of supporting your communities. So we'll go to more questions now. And Mel, you can also just launch those final polls while we do that if you want to.
Sure. So our first question is, would installing solar panels on an SES unit facility be eligible?
Yes, that fits under the sustainability objective, as well as probably fitting into also resilience and livability. It will be really important in those applications for us to understand what that benefit is. You know, your reduction of operational costs, and also probably your power supply in different times. So, you know, and once again, this is a great example of a great project in its simple execution, but the depth of that knowledge of what really are going to be the outcomes. How does it benefit the work you do as an SES organisation? How does it fit broadly your engagement with community and your ability to operate effectively, financially, and probably for your volunteers as well?
A not-for-profit kindergarten planning to install a water tank to teach the children sustainability, also for the water to be used for community gardens, and also as a water source in times of a natural disaster.
Yep.
Would be eligible.
This fits with the program, but it's a weaker alignment than other projects, I would suggest, because there's not necessarily a technology application in there. If there's any opportunity to be looking at some of the new technologies that support water usage and monitoring of that, that lends itself into both the education of the children and also the engagement of the community in some of those tools, it would strengthen a program like this.
Funding for two-way radios to more efficiently coordinate a rural agricultural and horticultural show. Yes,
we know that you know, the shows are significant contributors to economic benefit and social benefit of communities. So if you're going to make your operations more effective through that technology, we'd definitely be interested in looking at it. I think it's really important for us to understand why you've chosen that type of technology and why it's the best type of technology for you to be operating with.
down into parts because it is a longer question, so I'll just to make it easier for you to answer. We've got a community environmental organisation who are wanting to attract new and younger members, as well as accessing new technology to support what they do. Looking at number one, a specific project to support those aims, and number two, an ongoing capacity building project. Would both of these be considered, and can they have them both in one application or just choose from one of those two project ideas?
No, you can have a project with two stages in it to, I suppose, deliver on your broader organisational outcomes. So as long as it fits within the $10,000 value of the grant, we're very happy to see, you know, applications for bigger projects that look at the development of the organisation and actual projects coming through there.
Also, are we disadvantaged at all if we don't get the application in until a deadline date?
No, it's not first in, best served. We appreciate things take time. So you can hit the button at 4:59 on the 30th of March, and we will not be looking at the application any differently to someone that's actually already submitted an application.
Is website development to connect with volunteers appropriate?
Yes.
So another question with regards to regional areas, I'll pop a link into the chat to answer that question for you. And the last question I've got is, does installing monitoring IP cameras on places of worship to avoid vandalism and security qualify?
I would say no, because it's very specifically benefiting your organisation. And while I appreciate you are a non-for-profit organisation and probably have DGR status, it actually is benefiting specifically your organisation and your thing, and it's not actually building capacity with regards to the digital literacy or anything. So the alignment isn't strong with regards to that project.
Well, that's all the questions we've got in the chat.
Okay, is there any more questions that people would like to ask? No?
We've got one more possibly coming through.
That's okay. I'll just go to the next slide. Mel's just done that poll, so I thank people if they do contribute to it, because it really helps us to understand how we can better support you. And the questions have been really great too. We'll do a bit of an FAQ when we send out the slide deck, just to clarify potentially some of those answers if they're not clear, but also for you to be able to reference potentially some of the direction that came through on those. Everyone will be notified about the outcome of the application. So if you're successful, you'll have the grant offered to you and how to access the funds. All that information will be given to you. If you're unsuccessful, we really advise that you email us, and we'll give you the chance to have a chat or receive feedback via email so that you can strengthen your grant application opportunities in the future. I've spoken to people before who've missed out on grants, and they find it really, really helpful to have someone who's looked at it to say, look, it missed out for this reason, in the future I would do this. And also, as I said, please look at FRRR. We have quite a lot of grant opportunities going on. We have a lot of grant or activity going on in different communities throughout Australia that you may not be aware of, and that you may be able to find out about on our website. The grant seeker resources that I'm showcasing on this page are invaluable, and some of them are in videos, so you don't have to read reams and reams to actually get really handy tips on how to make your application stronger. So diarise the 30th of March to get it in by 5 p.m. Please subscribe to FRRR's monthly newsletter. That'll make sure that you never miss a grant opportunity that we've got coming up. Use our sorting hat tool if you are looking for grants now to see what might be available for you, and use the grant seeker resources. Is there any more questions, Mel?
There are. We do have a few
Great.
more.
That's fine.
Is going paperless for board meetings to be supported and also for staff training?
Yes, I definitely think there's great benefits in that from an environmental sustainability perspective, and also understanding how you're doing that, which enhances your digital capability. So a project like that would qualify.
Are there cohorts that are more favourable to focus the grant benefit towards? Our project focuses on all community members, but particularly seniors, including isolated veterans and homeschooled children.
Yes, I'm not going to say that we would preference one cohort over another. If you can explain to us the vulnerability of those cohorts and how your project addresses them, we know that by supporting people more vulnerable in communities, then there is a broader community benefit. So I hope that answers your question.
Would satellite backup for fire control centres and last resort disasters centres be considered?
Yes.
That's easy.
Yeah, sorry.
How much emphasis is there on the specific technology part of a project? Other parts that fulfil the aims of the grant?
Look, I think as long as we can understand what technology, where technology will play a part, and how you're looking to, I suppose, increase that digital capability, it doesn't have to be 75% or 85% of the grant. A lot of it might be how it is a tool, and then what that tool is enabling you to do in reaching the people you want to benefit, or achieving the outcome that you want to benefit. We'd like to think that by embracing new technologies and using tools like that, you're actually building the capacity of yourself and your community through that work, and there's greater sustainability in the work you do going forward.
Excellent. That's all the questions we have in the chat.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. As I said, the presentation and the slide deck will be sent out to you within 48 hours, and also a bit of an FAQ. Thank you very much for your time today and for your questions. It's great to have everyone really engaged and involved in thinking about this grant program. And we look forward to seeing your applications. Thank you.